Hello everyone, I Tina Solanki welcome you all to the 4th edition of Cineast International Film Festival of India, CIFFI 2022, world's first 7-day film festival being organized by educational institutes of 3 countries, India, Australia and China. DME Media School of Delhi Metropolitan Education, Noida, Delhi NCR, India, in association with School of Communication and Creative Arts, Deakin University, Melbourne, Australia, and in collaboration with School of International Communication, University of Nottingham, China campus. It is our pleasure to announce that this is the 4th year of a collaborative venture of Delhi Metropolitan DME Noida and Deakin University, Melbourne. The theme of CIFFI 2022 is Cinema for Togetherness, #Millennial Movies. Mr. Tigmanshu Dulia, National Award-winning film director from Bollywood, is the festival ambassador for CIFFI 2022. We are extremely thankful for his constant support. This year, Mr. Vinay Pathak, acclaimed theatre and Bollywood actor of Bheja Fry and Khosla Ka Ghosla fame, is the face of CIFFI 2022. And our festival personality is Yashpal Sharma, a popular actor of Bollywood. We are proud to mention that this year, CIFFI has received an overwhelming response from across the globe, surpassing its own records from the previous editions. We have 3,365 films from 112 countries in 6 different categories. These include ad films, short films, documentaries, fiction films, animations, and musicals. Out of these thousands of entries, our team has shortlisted 365 films that are being screened throughout the 7 days of this festival. Since its inception, CIFFI has been raising the bar of film festivals on a global scale. The first edition was held in April 2019 as a 4-day film festival. The second edition held in 2020 was themed Cinema and COVID-19 Impact. And the third edition was held in 2021 with the theme Cinematic Rejuvenation. This is the 4th edition of CIFFI, and with every passing year, we are achieving new milestones. This year, CIFFI 2022 will be holding 9 sessions, including 3 panel discussions, 3 workshops, 2 master classes, and 1 special session. We are pleased to mention that Nottingham University, China is our international partner for this CIFFI. Our festival partners are Cover Drive Production, a Noida-based production house, Vigyan Prasad, the organizer of National Science Film Festival of India and International Science Film Festival of India, CMS Vatavaran Environment and Wildlife Film Festival and Forum, Kids Cinema International Children's Film Festival, Culture Cinema, a concept-based film festival aimed at celebrating world cultures, We Care Film Festival for promoting and exhibiting films on disabilities, Delhi International Film Festival for screening films amidst heightened deliberations on world cinema. Our institutional partners are Global Media Education Council, an international platform of media educators and researchers, Indian Documentary Producers Association, an association of documentary filmmakers, Indian Academy of Shorts, an institution for imparting craftsmanship of filmmaking through small capsules, New Delhi Film Foundation, a prominent film society. The partnering media houses include APN News, a fast-paced current affairs web channel, the Policy Times international platform for unfolding policy and governance issues, Quick News web portal, Nispaksh News Hindi Daily, News 44 YouTube channel, and Gulistan News TV news channel. CIFFI 2022 is supported by Asian Media and Cultural Studies Network, Australia-India Film Practitioners and Researchers Network, and powered by the Spark student body of DME Media School. Journalism at DME is the official newsletter of DME Media School. This fortnightly publication covers all the major activities happening in and out the campus. It is a student-centric newsletter carried out entirely by them under the supervision of faculty members. DME TV is the official YouTube channel of DME where you can find the playlist related to all sessions, lecture series, film festivals, and conferences. It gives me immense pleasure to announce that for various sessions, we will go live on our official Facebook page of DME. For more information, follow us on our social media handles. Now, over to you, Nyasha.
Thank you. Now, I request Professor Dr. Amrish Saxena, Dean DME Media School and Festival Director CIFFI, to please formally open the session with his address to the audience. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. So I welcome everybody in this evening session on day 5 of CIFFI 2022. This is a matter of pleasure for each one of us that step by step we have entered into the 4th year of this festival, which we started in 2019. And this is a festival wherein obviously we have crossed the earlier records in terms of number of films and all, but it's not always the numbers, but the quality also matters. The quality of film that we have received is really phenomenal. Uh, the films which have been adjudged for awards, there are 19 prizes that we are given in 6 different categories, which include the best film and the jury nominations. And most of the films I have seen, and I can say this for sure, that the quality of films is certainly has increased. And also, the films are depicting the contemporary geopolitical scenario, because there are films which are on Ukraine war, wherein a filmmaker in Ukraine has made that film, which is a marvelous documentary and which tells us the kind of destruction which is happening in Ukraine. Similarly, there are films, and remarkably, there are films almost in equal numbers, 500 plus, from India and Iran. Iran again is a country which is passing through so much turmoil, as we know. But then there are filmmakers who are expressing themselves despite all kind of restrictions and censorship. So that is how film is a medium, which we can say, as normally we call it, the cinema of resistance. So films are giving us a platform, a medium wherein we can say all that which is otherwise not possible to say in so many words on any other media platform. So this is an important aspect of this film festival that we organize, the kind of deliberation that we organize, whether it's a panel discussion or a workshop or a master class like this, wherein we are directly addressing the minds. And if we can sensitize the people on core issues are the same whichever country we are living in, the issues of the humanity, the issues of maybe, I mean, human rights, maybe environment, maybe, I mean, all religious and caste issues, which are in a way taking the society forward. So we all have to fight with those issues. And if we are a filmmaker, so we have an instrument, we have a tool in our hands where we can express ourselves on these issues, which is ultimately leading to a better world. So I'm happy that Dr. Vikrant Kishore is with us this evening. He has been part of CIFFI right from the beginning, and it is more than the collaboration, and he has been working very closely with us, and we together have reached so far. And this session, I believe there's a master class by Dr. Vikrant Kishore, and he is a filmmaker, no doubt. He's an academic and researcher, but beyond that, he carries certain values for which he is always standing with. So, in this session, I believe that kind of values will also be there, which is very, very necessary for the younger generation to understand. Because if you know filmmaking, you know the skill, but you should also know what all is to be made and what all is to be shot, which is ultimately in the interest of the people, in the interest of the mankind. So I stop with these words so that we can have more time with Dr. Vikrant Kishore. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Today, we are gathered here for the first masterclass of CIFFI 2022 on the topic Capturing Stories of the Marginalized on Screen. We are honored to have Dr. Vikrant Kishore from Nottingham University as the resource person for this session. Dr. Vikrant Kishore is an associate professor in the School of International Communication in the University of Nottingham, Ningbo. He is an honorary fellow at the School of Communication and Creative Arts, Deakin University. He has authored and edited books on Indian cinema, celebrity culture, and intangible cultural heritage. Dr. Kishore has worked with media channels such as Z News, ABC, SBS, and Channel 7. Currently, he has been capturing stories of cultural flows and its impact on the Indian diaspora in Australia. He has organized international conferences, film festivals, and seminars on Indian cinema. He has been a jury member in various film festivals such as Atom Awards Australia, Real Film Festival Newcastle, Melbourne Web Film Festival, and Doordarshan National Awards India, and a pre-jury member of the Australian Academy of Cinema and Television Arts Award 2018. Dr. Kishore is a board member of the Australia India Film Council, a member of the Victorian Multicultural Commission's Regional Advisory Council, an advisor to the Scalon Research Institute, and a member of the Inclusion and Diversity Task Force of Museums, Victoria, Australia. Let us now begin the masterclass, which is about capturing stories of the marginalized on screen. I request Dr. Vikrant Kishore sir to kindly take over from here. Over to you, sir.
Great. Thank you, Nasha. Thank you, Tina. And thanks, Professor Amrish, for such a warm welcome. And it's so good to see CIFFI on its fourth day. As Amrish mentioned, it's been a long way for us, almost more than 4 years for us to see the fourth edition. And any festival, how do you judge? It's all about the continuity and all about the kind of exclusivity that it brings. And we are, really proud, not being just, seeing how things have unfolded, but how, and as what Amrish just mentioned about the kind of quality that the festival is bringing and the discussions and the kind of deliberations in the festival that is happening, it is most useful for students. And this is what CIFFI is doing, is that it is, putting new ideas and new thoughts in the mind of students. And today, with that in my mind, and especially, with the theme, when I look back at the theme of each CIFFI festival, it has been put up with lots of thought. And, there is lots goes behind the scene when you are planning for a theme of the festival. And cinema for togetherness, it's a very powerful theme. And I really, when I saw this particular theme, I felt really excited. And this is something that we have to celebrate, cinema for togetherness. But is the celebration, enough, or do we need to do more? And for you as students, there's lots of things to be learned, and to make sure that tomorrow you'll be able to celebrate cinema and especially storytelling of the marginalized. But before I formally start, I would like to recognize the various traditional lands where we are located and acknowledge the elders past, present, and emerging. And I also acknowledge the rights and struggles of Dalits and Adivasis of India. And here I start with my presentation. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to use a slide presentation just to give you an idea as to what all things I'm talking about. I'm going to keep my presentation for around maximum 30 to 35 minutes, and then probably open up for Q&A. If there are some questions, there's always good to hear from students. Remember, I'm not going to talk about techniques of cinema, but I'm just going to talk about how to think about cinema and how to think about people who don't have the voice, and probably give them the voice, or, be their voice, or get them to use every possible means to express themselves. That's what we can do for the marginalized communities. Okay, so today we are talking about capturing stories of the marginalized on screen. And as a filmmaker, I always feel that one of our responsibilities is that when we are using the power of mass communication and mass media, putting people on the forefront who don't generally get chance to express themselves or to talk about their particular situation, it's very important for us to do that. And it can be for both kind of storytelling. It can be for fiction storytelling, and it can be also for non-fiction storytelling. All right. So both stories are important. Both forms of stories are important. I am more of a documentary filmmaker. Fiction is something which I've very rarely done, but most of my career has been on non-fiction storytelling, be it through news, or be it through soft stories for news, or making short documentaries and long form documentaries. So that's what I'm going to talk to you all about. And one of the things that we do, what I want to set the scene as to what is this masterclass about and what would you be able to take home after this particular class. So firstly, understanding the importance of inclusivity and diversity on screen. Second is why the stories of the marginalized are important. Third is how to be inclusive in your screenwriting. So just some tips on screenwriting and what is responsible representation on screen and how you can avoid stereotyping and what kind of themes when you are thinking about, oh, how do I capture stories of marginalized and what are the kind of themes, then I'll also share some of the themes that you can work on. And finally, how to support marginalized communities to tell their stories. So inclusivity, diversity, and equity matters. Okay, this is something which, it's the key word for any organizations and government these days. And, even in India, inclusivity and diversity was one of the first things when Indian constitution was being made. India went through a huge kind of a problem in terms of, disparity and discrimination. In India, it's a country of too much of inequities and the discriminations, if you can see rightly, it is right from in the name of caste, in the name of religion, in the name of region, many other kind of, these kind of inequalities are there. Also in the name of sex, okay? So, in a patriarchal society like India, women have been always looked down upon, so the representation of women or the voice of women, hardly mattered at one point of time. Of course, we are now changing that through the kind of way representations are happening in media, but still it is not enough. There's much to be done. So inclusivity is all about bringing the whole community together or the group together. So if you are working in a university or in your college, it's all about, working together with all your classmates, people who are there, not thinking in terms of who comes from which class or caste or which religion or which region. So not, being discriminatory to each other, but also understanding diversity. Diversity is all about respecting what people bring from their diverse background. Diversity means, so India is a diverse country, we have different kind of people, we have got different, language, different cultures. So a whole lot of diversity is there in India. So we also have to represent and respect diversity. So in a class, of course, it's not going to be a kind of a same kind of a class structure. There will be, in a university class, you'll find people from at least 10 different states, 20 different language speaking people, so diversity is that about, people coming from different backgrounds, different culture, different mindset, different thinking, different religion, different color. They all come together to speak one language or, making sure that we are, we are respecting whatever ethnicity, whatever background, whatever diverse colors they bring in, we respect that to talk at the basic level of humanity with each other. And equity, where we are giving chance to people on the basis of a kind of an equitable structure and also understanding how equity matters to all. And that's why when I used the particular example of Indian Constitution, and Indian Constitution in a way became the voice of, marginalized, through bringing them into the main fold of the Indian, within the governance system and within the system where they could be given the voice, be it people from the marginalized castes or women as well. So there was this huge discussion in 2015, 2016, and there was the whole Twitter in 2015 and 2016, which was, inundated with lots of memes, about these kind of posters of Hollywood, because people, said that Hollywood basically represents white people and their white representation. It does not represent Black or Latinx or other communities and people the way they should be. And there were lots of memes, and there are these three memes I'm sharing with you. One is, Matt Damon, the white guy, of course, the film is Interstellar, the big shot, they change it to the big white, or Leonardo DiCaprio's film turned into the white man. So it was all about, laughing at this thing. And in a way, it is not about just joke. It was making a statement that, Hollywood needs to tell the stories of people, other than the white. Same thing in India is still not happening. While, people online, they are talking about, Hollywood needs to give representation, and Hollywood is moving towards putting and bringing in lots of diverse cast and diverse crews in there. So there are now crews who are, which are majorly, women-based crews, which are working behind the camera. Then there are crews which are, all black crew. Then there are Latin crews and all, but then there are also, heroes and protagonists from different culture. If you look at Marvel cinema, you have something like Sanchi, which represents a Chinese protagonist, or you have the Eternals, which represents South Asians in it, or the latest, there are a couple of other new ones which have come up, which has Latin, heroes, superheroes and all. So the representations are changing, and diversity is becoming more and more the key word of any kind of media. Unfortunately, in India, diversity is something in media. Again, like every time I talk about diversity, it's specifically about media. It's hardly there. So one thing which we'll be talking about today, about the diversity and how in India it is represented. So why the stories of the marginalized are important? This is one question people ask, and why should we, give them our money, or why we should be making any kind of film or any kind of series. As I said, the mainstream cinema or TV focuses on stories of dominant class and caste in India. Okay, so either it is Karan Johar style kind of films which have just focused on rich and powerful, or just too much of dominant castes. That's another kind of problem, that every time there is this Punjabi upper caste Khatri style kind of representation which is happening in Indian cinema, and I'll talk more about that. The stories of discrimination, fear, pain, anxiety, and trauma of the marginalized are hardly captured. Okay, there's a difference between hardly captured and not captured. When I use the term hardly captured, it means there are 4 or 5 films, but then it doesn't go beyond that. Even the celebratory and success stories of the marginalized are not considered. So these stories, remember, are important to be told, especially by the ones from the marginalized communities. So we need to make sure the people from marginalized communities are also given chance to tell their stories. So not only being the stories, but also being able to tell their own stories. And they should tell the stories in the way, in their own way, and for the future generations to understand their struggles and challenges. So who are the marginalized in India? So basically, marginalized will be different from one country to another. Okay. So, marginalized in Australia could be, people from India, for people of color. Okay. So in Australia, people of color are marginalized, migrants are marginalized. So who makes marginalized in India? These are mainly Dalits, Adivasis, LGBTQI, so lesbian, gays, trans, queer, and intersex people, elderlies. At times there's very few, media which are focusing on elderlies, migrants, refugees, people who are often discriminated on, women and children, of course, in different capacities, different categories. But feel free to suggest, any other groups you feel that should be included in this particular marginalized group that I'm just sharing at the moment. Okay. So how are these marginalized groups represented on screen? These are the kind of questions which I'm posing to you. What do you see around you? How much their stories are covered? How these communities are represented? Are they represented properly or not? And do you feel that these communities are stereotyped and misrepresented? Have you ever given it a thought? This is a question to you as a student. Of course, I know that most of the times you are watching all these kind of entertainment cinema. You are, focused on films which are all about talking about, entertainment and fun and, superheroes and all. But beyond that, you are media students. Tomorrow, you're going to get on and use these tools that you're learning today to make films that matters. Or even if you're going to make entertainment films, then you're going to at least matter and create some situation where your films are more than entertainment, which incorporates entertainment, but also includes a whole lot of storytelling in it. So the mainstream, as I said, the mainstream cinema or TV focuses on stories of dominant class and caste in India, and that is a big problem. In fact, I wrote an article this year on the caste blindness of Bollywood NRI genre films. So NRI genre films is all about really, either rich people or people who are just going to there to struggle to make big money. But it was all about a specific caste coming from Punjab or from mainly from Punjab, because most of the filmmakers were from Punjab, and that was the thing that was happening at that point of time. So this was a kind of a big problem. And if you can access, and my article is there online, I'm not going to talk in detail about my article, but this can be a first grounding for you to understand how representations are done and how misrepresentations are also done. Okay, so we need to be very careful. Last year, or in fact, this year only, for the Oscars, we had this particular documentary made by Rintu Thomas and Shushmit Ghosh. In fact, my super juniors from Jamia Millia Islamia, these two filmmakers, who made this documentary called Writing with Fire, and it became one of the first films which was nominated from India for best documentary in Oscars. And it was really good to have, a documentary film from India being nominated for Oscars. And what was the story? The story that they captured was about these female journalists from UP who were doing stories of the underprivileged. So most of these female journalists were from the marginalized communities, and they were telling stories of the marginalized, of the people day to day, their struggles and the problems that they face, which was very important. You don't see these kind of stories in the mainstream news. Okay, mainstream news channels are more interested in politics and entertainment and all the big things. And while they are covering the big things, what is happening is that they are losing, and they are in a way bypassing the stories of these marginalized communities, marginalized people. And that's why when someone picks up a story which is a very simple story but yet very powerful, because nobody else has thought about capturing those stories about the kind of change these women are bringing in their particular society, in their community, through their very, their particular understanding of camera is not there. They don't know even how to use mobile phone. Half of them are not even properly literate in English that they can read the signs and particular, symbols in a mobile phone. They ask each other as to how to do things, and that's how they come up. And yet they are able to use that tool of mobile filmmaking and mobile storytelling to reach out to a larger audience, that when their story is told, the whole world stands up and claps for the kind of things that they are doing. And they end up getting not only, nominated for Oscars, but the documentary won a whole lot of awards. And this particular group of Khabar Laharia, being talked all over the world for the kind of work that they are doing at a very grassroots level. So understand the power of storytelling, that you can actually pick up something from the grassroots and make an international headline, which Writing with Fire did. In fact, last year, not last year, in fact, earlier this year, this film was being screened in the Human Rights Film Festival in Australia. And when they were screening the festival, they had invited me to be a panelist to talk about the film. So I had a privilege to actually, after the screening, be a panelist and talk about the film and why it works. All right. So moving on to the next, one of the questions you should be asking yourself, that when you are writing films or when you're thinking about cinema, how can, you can tell stories, or how you can be, be inclusive in your screenwriting. Always ask these questions to yourself, okay? And this is put forth by Julia Camara in We Screenplay. And she says that, firstly, we need to ask, who does the story belong to, okay? Story belongs to someone. Either it comes from you through your own reflection, own experiences, or through your own reflections, or sometimes when you're telling stories of communities or people or a person, you need to know who that story belongs to. It's very important. Telling that story is important, but who it belongs to needs to be understood. Okay, lots of times people tell the story through their own lens about the marginalized and underprivileged, and thus what happens that they don't end up doing justice to the story. Lots of people feel that, why, what happened to us? Similarly, going back to that, after the kind of a backlash, political backlash happened to the, writing with fire, the Khabar Lahariya people said that, oh, they were not represented properly. And that became a political issue and a political thing, which the filmmakers, tried to say that they said what they have to. But at the end of the day, you don't want your protagonist or people who you're making your film on should not say that, you have misrepresented us or you did not tell our stories truthfully. So always make sure to tell the stories properly and nicely, and do your research and authenticity, work around that, and work. So researching and authenticity is very important. Researching on your work, how you do, what you do, and finding out the gray lines as well of whatever research that you do. And authenticity is to not just working on something for the sake of it. Recently, just yesterday, in fact, I was watching this Bollywood film called Ram Setu. And it started with such a bang saying that, oh, we are going to do this research on finding Ram Setu and all. And at the end, I was like, where was this research? What research did it do to even, locate that particular Ram Setu and all? There is lots of research and all, but the film fails to depict that. And that's where, as an audience, you feel robbed, that the film should have done something more to show the authenticity, to show the research. And even if it is in the guise of entertainment, it shouldn't rob of the expectation that it sets through in its tone, in its whole thing, that they are going to find and they're going to do something. But at the end, they use something and then goes again onto the mythological kind of a leaning, which is not research. It again borrows and utilizes some other kind of public sentimentality in terms of associating things with it. So that's what I find it problematic. So when you say research, you need to do a proper scientific research. You just can't say that I'm doing scientific research, and then end up doing something very simple, very normal, very rather something that can be totally, can be, said that it has not been done in the proper way. So another thing is always avoid stereotypes. This is another thing that we see in terms of Hindi cinema or even Indian cinema overall. You can see that the stereotypes play in terms of stereotypes of the looks, who are the people. Stereotypes starts because the cinema has given us stereotypes that what kind of person would look good, who is, a black person should be called Kalu or Kallu, a white person should be, really, looked upon, and that's what the kind of experience. Whenever a white person goes to India, they end up coming back, oh, I was treated like a god, I was like this. And whenever an African, black African person goes to India, they feel that they are being humiliated and ridiculed at lots of places, as if, they are something. So they'll be called monkeys, they'll be called, black, Kallu, and all. Lots of times they feel totally, really feel that they're being offended at every point of time because how they are looked upon. So stereotypes could be even simple things like, how the Madrasi representation in Bollywood happens, or anyone who was a dark skin, dark skin became a big problem, or even with men, if it was Kalu, with women, it was Kali. In fact, there was a very good film made on this white and black kind of, problems within the cinema and how it actually impacts the society. I'm forgetting the name of the film, but I'll share with you guys later. Other thing is that be open to feedback and change. When you are doing stories on marginalized, lots of times people are, not very sure as to what they are sharing with you and to what extent. And sometimes they might say something, but later on they want to change and give you more feedback. So be always open to, receive feedback and be open to change. In fact, I was doing a series on resisting caste back in Australia on Indian diaspora. And I spent so much of time, shooting with two of these women who shared so much with me. And later on, after 3-4 months, when I was editing the film and about to complete the film, both of them came back to me. One actually, said no at the very beginning of the edit portion. And another, actually, at the midway of the edit, she backed out because they were uncomfortable coming out as Dalits or coming out as, someone from a marginalized caste. And they felt really, really, and I had to respect that. Though I spent so much of time, so much of energy, so much of money in doing that filming with a crew of 8 people, but at the end of the day, I had to listen to what they said and what they wanted. So I had to, dump the film. I'm not doing that film anymore. I have to find some other people. I found 2 more people to do the story, but I have to. So take the risk. So when we do stories like this, we have to take risk also as to what can go wrong and what can't. And risks about telling the stories. Lots of times there might be social repercussion. Lots of people might come and tell you that, hey, why are you doing this story? I remember when I was doing this story uh, back in Jamia, when I was doing my master's in Jamia, and one of my batchmates, she was teamed up with me, and we were doing the story on atrocities on scheduled castes in India. And then she comes back one day and she says, oh, my nani just said that, why are you doing stories on these chamars and all? We were like shocked. But then she said, that's the kind of stereotypes that exist, and that is the kind of feeling when you're doing stories. But you have to take risks. You have to, because lots of times people use these things as slurs and problematic. But when you're taking risks, lots of people will also, get onto you as to why you're doing this. Or sometimes lots of time, people these days, have different perspective. But even while you're doing stories on the marginalized, remember, these 2 rules still apply. You can't break any rules of filmmaking or making your particular media, doing research, going through proper shoot, taking permissions, working on your script. Everything needs to be done. It can't be just, oh, I've got a good story, I'm doing a story on marginalized, well, let's get going with our camera and we are going to get an Oscar. That's not going to happen. So you need to understand, you have to understand what you want to do. And most importantly, write what you want to see. You can't be writing what you don't want to see or what you don't want to share with your audience. So those are the kind of things to keep in mind. So responsible representation, one of the things which I just talked about, that I find lots of irresponsible representation when it comes to marginalized or even women when it comes to Indian cinema, or even if you want to focus on something like Hindi cinema. Recently, a responsible representation, which actually blends LGBTIQ issue with caste issue, was a segment in Ajib Dastan's called Gili Pucci, probably the only segment that worked well, which was directed by Neeraj Ghaiwan. And I was talking to Neeraj about 2 months. I was doing an interview with Neeraj, and Neeraj said that he has to make these kind of films, and you has to work around this particular idea. It's that you can't keep on telling the same story of marginalization again and again and again, but you have to actually find stories which matters to the marginalized in a different ways. And here he blended 2 different marginalized communities. One is the caste marginalized, and another is the issue of the sexual marginalization in terms of the lesbian storytelling of the lesbian couple here. So these are the kind of storytelling devices different filmmakers are using. Another filmmaker, Ranjit, he is using this particular storytelling device. Just 1 second, I'll just... So this was a film made in Tamil by Ranjit. Ranjit has been doing lots of interesting films like Kala, Sarpatta. Recently, he did another very interesting film, Natcharitram. I'm forgetting the last name, but Ranjit is being known for the kind of groundbreaking films and representing the marginalized in telling their stories more effortlessly and much more strongly. And Satpatta is in fact one of my favorite films. It is there on, I think it is there on Netflix, I think, or Amazon. Yeah, and also on Z5 probably. So find it and watch it. It's a very interesting storytelling there, something that you can be inspired of. So avoid stereotypes in terms of whatever representations you are doing. And then in terms of themes, this is something which lots of students ask me, that when we do stories on marginalized stories, what are the themes? So these are the kind of themes that I picked up for you, and probably you can take so casteism, racism, identity, discrimination, oppression, suppression, ostracization, justice denial or injustice, violence, survival, struggles, trauma, human rights, persecution, torture, slavery, displacement, and land rights. This is very much, with the marginalized community, especially Adivasis of India. They are facing so much of displacement, and that so much of land rights of theirs have been taken away. This is always a very important kind of an theme and a kind of a topic that you can pick up. Through that, also elimination and extinction. Extinction of forest tracts, extinction of culture, elimination of different kind of things that is taking place. Conflict, the conflict between haves and have-nots, of conflict between the government and the tribals, and different kind of conflicts that you can tell stories. Also change and transformation, the kind of change and transformation that is going through people, because of modernity, because of urbanism, because of land encroachment, because of deforestation. So that kind of transformation it brings to people. Also animals, there's also, marginalized can also be animals, but then that's another different topic. I'm not getting into that. But change and transformation does not only impact people, but also a whole lot of other things. Culture in a general way, of course, it's always a big story. Human dignity, that's one thing, is that whole lot of time caste, the whole casteism was all about robbing people of their dignity. It was all about that you can spit on someone, or you can pick any women and you can rape them, or you can just slap someone because, or you can not let them enter your temple or do things. That was about making them feel as if they were worse than animals, and that was robbing of that human dignity. So that is another thing. Diversity is about the whole aspect I talked in my initial talk about how we have to respect diversity. Inclusivity, equity, stereotypes. I just talked about rights advocacy, when we are wanting to put the rights of people and how we can advocate that. Whole lot of activism is, also included in that. Legal empowerment, that's also, there are films that you can talk about legal empowerment. Migration, refugee, immigrants, belonging, where you belong, how you belong, you're belonging with your own land, you're belonging with your own culture. It's very important. Othering is like making someone feel outsider, making someone feel ostracized. That is othering. Okay, it can happen in the name of religion, caste, and all, and that's what is happening in India at the moment. So much of othering is happening. That is a division about what is happening to a specific religion, or finding what I wear or what color you wear. And because of the use of one color, recently one particular song and dance sequence is being othered out just because they used a particular color. Now that is like picking and choosing where to take your fight and just trying to create nuisance factor generally. That's the kind of thing. Coexistence. That's, if you're othering, probably one of the things, that result that you want, from not being othered, is to live peacefully and exist properly, nicely with each other, understanding each other's differences, but coming together, and finally adaptation, adapting to each other and seeing how things can work in the better way. Finally, I want to wrap up my kind of talk here is to, in terms of acknowledging your privilege. Another thing, if you are from privileged community, privileged class, privileged caste, always acknowledge your privilege, that this is the privilege I come from. These are the things that I have, and this is what they don't have. That is the kind of thing that you need to put into your particular understanding, acknowledging your privilege. You can't be putting yourself, even if you are privileged, start thinking that, oh, because of them, I haven't got that. And you start putting yourself down because that has been the kind of mainstream discussion around. If you have got something, if you are there, if you can have, and you are among those haves, then you have to start acknowledging your privilege. I always make sure that I acknowledge my privilege whenever I start something, or whenever I start doing stories. My privilege gives me access to a whole lot of things, but my privilege also makes me, unsee things which lots of marginalized people or communities go through. So I try to keep my eyes open and try to be empathetic and sympathetic towards what is happening around me and what is happening to others, and to be able to learn from their stories. So understanding community becomes important. one of the things that you need to do is educate yourself on the issues that matters to the communities. So whoever story that you're going to pick up, you can't just go in because I have to do a story on slums, or I'm going to go into the slums, I'll go and take my videos and I'll come back, I'll take 3 bites, just like what these news channels are doing these days. They will just go shove their mic onto any person and think that they are all powerful and they can get anyone to say anything and everything as per their wishes, and then come up without being bothered about who they talk to, why did they talk to them, and what effect and all that. This is what is happening whenever I see it. I switched off myself from watching Indian news channels. It's been almost 8 years now. I hardly watch. I generally read the news headlines in 1 or 2 news what do you call news websites, but I don't watch news channels because it's too maddening. It's just too much of what do you call agenda setting happening through that. And that's one thing as a kind of a filmmaker that you need to know, or as a kind of a media person, is to see through those agendas and see through those kind of frames that is being pushed onto you to think in a certain way, and that is what media school like DME empowers you to do that, to understand what we are saying as teachers, because we are bringing our experience to share with you, but we are not trying to put it on you so that you start saying what we are saying, but we are trying to tell you as to keep your mind open, keep your eyes open, and become a thinking citizen. Ask questions, seek answers, inform and create awareness in your own community, family groups, about the aspects of privileged and underprivileged, what is marginalized, what is high privileges, those kind of things. The moment people have to start owning, they can't have to keep thinking that they are the victims, because these days I see people in the privileged sphere trying to feign that they are victims of things, or they are being targeted by this person or that religion or this and that. That is so much of these kind of narratives that is being built upon. It is problematic, and it becomes problematic when aspiring filmmakers like you, or aspiring media person or storytellers like you, start thinking in those ways. So don't listen to those kind of agenda setting or frames that is being pushed by the mainstream always these days. Be ready to listen and understand from their experience of the marginalized, and stand in solidarity. Okay, standing in solidarity is very important. If you just standing at the back, just letting them take the center stage, network with the people and pass the mic. Okay, sometimes it's not you who should be saying things about the marginalized need to tell their stories, and passing the mic has been one of the big things in last decade or so. That has been the key word, where it's all about empowering the marginalized. So last year we did this particular panel discussion with the film team of this particular film called Gita. This was in last year's panel, and you can see it was exactly a year back. Interesting. A year back on 19th, we did a panel discussion with Gita documentary with the film team. And why I'm bringing that? Because since then, the film actually has moved on to work not only as a documentary to screen it in the festival, but they are doing an action through cinema. Is that after every film screening, Gita's daughter, Neetu, she has been actually working in Australia and getting people to watch the film and asking people back in India to wake up, so that she wants to spread this particular, message about, how, acid attacks are problematic. In fact, today only I read there was somewhere in India that someone threw acid on another girl's face. Every day you hear about acid attacks, and Gita and her daughter Neetu, they both were attacked by acid by her father itself. Okay, because he didn't want to have a female child, so he wanted to kill all 3 of his female childs. And then today, after whatever 25 years, now he's repentant, and he's actually living with them again, and is proud of what his wife and daughter are doing, and getting all the international recognition. But then this is also about patriarchal society, about wanting just a kind of a boy and not wanting girls. So that's a kind of problem. So action through cinema is also about, when you're focusing on a marginalized, you're also giving them the space to capture. So I know Emma very well, and I'm working closely with this film team And last year, as I said, they were here at CIFFI. So they have been, in fact, today they have won Australian Teachers of Media Award for Best Documentary. Isn't it great that today I just saw their particular post on Facebook, and I have to congratulate them in person, that one work they have been doing. They have won so many awards over the year because one of the things which really matters is that they are not, what Emma, the filmmaker, did was not only capture the story of Neetu and Gita, but then she is always keeping Neetu at the forefront of all her film festivals. Before her, it's Neetu she pushes in front to talk, to take the center stage, and to be the voice of the film. This is very important, and what she is doing is very, very something very appreciative that we should do. Similarly, what I have been doing, I did a web series, and I have talked about my web series back here in CIFFI 2-3 years back. And it was all about looking at the stories of the person of color. Okay, so when we are in India, we might be dominant, but when we are in Australia, we are person of color, because in Australia, there is a specific racism. Of course, it's not on your face kind of racism, but there is something. And lots of people are marginalized because of their migrant status and their person of color status. So I tried to do this story of adaptability, and it was received quite well. And finally, this is my last particular slide, where a documentary series on Purulia Chao, where actually I looked at the whole caste system and the representation through, particular dance form. So where first 3 films were all about, how the dancers and the culture works. The final film which I'm making is actually looks at the whole caste structure as well. So that's all from my side. And if you have any questions, then I'm all okay.
Okay, so by the time the questions are coming, can you suggest, Dr. Vikrant, to these young students, because you touched upon a very, very pertinent thing. And as far as theory is concerned, we teach certain papers, particularly development communication and all. Even there are other papers where such kind of issues are picked up as part of the syllabus and all. But when it comes to film, what kind of approach, if you can suggest something to these students, they should adopt regarding picking up such issues, how to pick up such kind of issues, and how to put them in the videos and the film that they will be making. So if you can give some tips, some suggestions to these students.
Yeah, generally, when you're picking up these kind of stories, I have always found it effective when we include it within our kind of course structure. So for example, like when I teach documentary, I give them a kind of a kind of a theme. So like last time, my theme was change. And change itself is a huge theme, and anything can work within change. And then I ask them, students, to look at, what actually matter to them and what kind of change do they think is impacting them directly or indirectly. And then you come up, students come up with really interesting ideas. It could be, so I ended up having stories of, Black Saturday fire, which was in Melbourne, where one of the students' family members, their home was burned down because of the Black Saturday fire. And then stories like a musician who lost their livelihood because of COVID, or, someone like an international student who could not get any work, due to COVID, and had to pay from their pocket because they could not get loan. So stories like that came out very naturally. I didn't have to, I had to just give them a huge theme like change. It sounds very simple, but anything and everything came under change. So one of the things is finding those kind of topics or theme and getting the students to think around that. But when students want to do their own kind of search, and where they have the freedom that they can do anything and everything, then first and foremost, it's always important for you to ask as to what kind of storyteller you want to become. Whose story do you want to tell? Because even if you're going to do an entertaining story, it has to be story of someone, and it has to be a story where someone is going to watch it and someone is going to clap for it. So the moment you know for whom and with what impact you want to do that, then only you will be able to find that right topic you want to do. And always look around you. One of the things in journalism and filmmaking we always say is look around you. What is happening around you? What matters to you? You know, those kind of things are important, and the culture and issues that really, really makes you either really happy, angry, sad. Anything can which can get your emotion. So there's another one question which is coming here on the chat. What is
Yes,
the
sir, there is one question in the chat box.
Yeah. So what is the major difference between Indian documentaries from different countries? Okay, Indian documentaries versus other countries. Well, every country has its own powerful storytelling device and documentaries. So there is no difference as such. You will see, like I gave you an example of Writing with Fire, one of the films which got nominated to the Oscars. Okay. And there was another film which was also recently, nominated and won lots of awards. I'm forgetting the name of the film, which was forgetting the name. Again, an Indian film, but it really got and again made by a Jamia student, MCRC student. That was done. I'm forgetting the name. Apologies for that. But Indian documentary filmmakers are really, really good, and they are doing some interesting work. Problem with documentary filmmaking in India versus documentary filmmaking in the West is that in the West, there's lots of pots of money, lots of grants available for filmmakers to put their hands on. Though they are competitive, but there is lots of money that people can get their hands on. In India, people have to beg, borrow. Steal, I don't know, but beg and borrow, that is one thing. Most of the times in India, documentary filmmaking is all about people pooling in their own money or saving money to make the kind of films they want. And as a filmmaker, I have done that. I have, most of my films that I have made is through my own pocket. And I had the privilege to, put the money because, I've always had a kind of a full-time job where I can save some money and then do my own film. But if I have to really put my effort and energy in getting these grants, it's too much. Sometimes it's like, why the hell am I even going? But for filmmakers, yes, you need to know the art of putting in a grant application. And now we are actually teaching in our documentary class how to prepare yourself for funding applications and putting your grant applications, not only back in Australia or here in China, but also worldwide, that there are lots of these grants that you can do. So difference, again, that is one difference in terms of the kind of money is there. And the possibilities, because of the OTT platforms, it is making it more global. So people are looking at global stories everywhere. So Netflix is accepting good stories from anywhere and everywhere. In fact, one of the first Netflix documentaries, which of an Indian, in fact, she was my junior, Miriam Minacheri. She made the film The Rat Catchers of these in Mumbai local trains. There are lots of rats, and in the station, and there are these professional rat catchers which has been employed by the Mumbai railways. And so she made a documentary on those rat catchers. And one of my students, in fact, she was looking for an intern, and then I sent one of my students from India to do an internship with her and help her with that. And that the Rat Catchers won lots of international awards, was screened in Tokyo International Documentary Film Festival, and did very well. And then next thing I see it on Netflix, that the film is available there. So you will find lots of Indian documentaries earlier, which would be just, going to just film festivals. Now, lots of OTT platforms are acquiring documentaries, and it's giving new lease of life to documentary films and a way to make money as well.
So there is one student whose name is Sonakshi Suneja. Actually, she was trying to write it. Yeah, she's there. There's a question she wanted to ask in the chat box. Do you think OTT platforms are beneficial for the marginalized movies?
Absolutely. OTT platforms are doing wonders. OTT platforms are changing the rules. The rules that the mainstream films were writing about what kind of films will be going out there, what kind of storytelling will be there. Lots of times, the mainstream filmmakers or the distribution cartel would, stop certain kind of films just because of the storytelling approach. With OTT platforms, somewhat it is being democratized, but not all. So it's not that OTT platforms are very democratic space. Of course, it works through a content, someone who acquires your content. The content acquisition person is also connected with the mainstream film, with the whole network and all. But the demand of content is so much that if you have got a good content, it will get someone to take it on board. So yes, you have an opportunity to do all kinds of storytelling, and the whole OTT platforms, I think, is the best thing to happen after, after internet. Next thing is OTT platforms on through, internet again. Absolutely, very interesting development. And you see so many films, like all the South Indian films, from Asuran to Sarpatta to Jai Bhim, to so many of these films of marginalized, which, because of the region of language barrier, we wouldn't have seen it in North India. Now almost, most of the North Indians are also aware of these kind of films like Asuran and Sarpatta, or, Jai Bhim, because of the language issue, because because that there's no language issue now, because either it can be dubbed, or either at least it is subtitled. One of the big things is subtitled, and you can watch films not only from different parts of India, but all across the world. So, now we see so much of love for Korean content in India now.
Thank you so much, sir, for this enlightenment session. This side, Dr. Rizvi from DME College. So my question to you is that we in Bollywood movies are witnessing a change like the themes are changing, like some of the movies like Pad Man or Toilet, that have played an important role in bringing the storylines that are different from what we see. They are again different from the formula films, and they have put forth the struggles of the women in rural areas or in the closets. So how much more do you think there is a scope that there can be representation of such films, and plus many more themes that are yet to be explored and discovered on the basis that we can make many movies on these themes? Thank you.
Yeah, I missed your question because you got cut in between. So what was your main question? Sorry.
So my main question is like these days we are witnessing a change in the films in Bollywood, that they are not following that formula kind of thing that was going on.
Okay, I got it. So
films like Padman and Toilet, that have put forth the struggles of women in remote areas, and as well as in the women, these issues were like in the closet, but they have really got a voice through the films. So what do you think there's a scope that there will be much more representation of
there
such
will be, but I don't see Padman or even Toilet being very revolutionary. I find them as a spokesperson of government strategies, which lots of films have been doing earlier also. So there is nothing new. Probably you have missed watching all the 70s and 80s films, which Shyam Benegal and Govind Helani and even Prakash Jha and lots of these filmmakers brought, or Aparna Singh. If you look at the regional cinemas of Bengali cinema, and all the doyens of Bengali films, what they did, they threw light on these kind of social issues and the problem of women quite strongly. What Bollywood is doing is very, it's just it's just not even catching up. It's just trying to ride onto that kind of a kind of a social issue factor. I more than Akshay Kumar's film, I find Ayushmann Khurrana style of films are much better.
So it is, but like, so Padman throws light that we always had that too, that we discuss things like women menstrual cycles and all these things. But towards you will find there is some change going on, that in college, that now we are able to do that. If you want to do some funding, that we want to put some money, and the students are coming for that, they come in class. Now it's not kind of that much of taboo thing, and that we cannot speak about it. So I think that it might not be aesthetically as great, or the storyline is not so impressive, but the theme, I really feel that it really got voice.
Again, I'll just tell you that what you are talking, it was already happening in 70s and 80s. It's nothing new. It's just because Bollywood didn't deliver what it should be doing in the mainstream. You didn't see it. And that's why when something like this comes in the mainstream with a big actor, that you suddenly find that, oh, I didn't watch this kind of film, but those kind of films were already there. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay,
So that's
so
why, sir,
toilet
we have this
issues. So you
film
have to watch
festival.
a very interesting film by Paramita Vohra. Again,
Mhm.
she made a documentary called Q to P. Okay, so it's a pun on Q and P, but it's actually the Q to P. So it's basically, affordability and going on to how women have to really encounter problem in public spaces to even access toilet. Or you have to
Mhm.
watch Vinod Kapri's film, which won the national award, called We Can't Take the Shit, where he shows the how in whole of India people are shitting in every nook and corner. They don't have toilet. You have to actually watch that film to understand the problem of toilet, which is happening in India and which is still there. So these
Yeah.
are pre-Padman films. Okay, so just for your information.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Vikrant sir, there is one another question in the chat. That is Chapak movie considered as marginalized or not? Like Chapak is on acid tag.
It is a film of marginalized, again, marginalized in terms of it's a mainstream storytelling, but as marginalized stories of marginalized, of women who are victims of acid attacks. And I just used an example of the film Gita, which is a documentary film on Gita and Neetu and how they were attacked by acid. So acid attack, do you see acid attack victims becoming the protagonist of a film? So no, you don't see that kind of story. There's hardly many stories on acid attacks, even in parallel cinema. Nobody even picked up acid attacks. So documentaries did, and Gita is one story which I'm working closely with them, and seeing how what Neetu went through. I met Neetu. She was when she was only 5 years old when her father poured acid all over her face. So I can very much see the pain and the kind of problem that the family went through, or rather the women, not the family, because it was the male of the family, the father of the family, who poured acid on all the women of the family, because he didn't like all the girl child in his family. He wanted a boy. And just because his family his mother kept on prodding him that, oh, my wife can't give boy, and why are you having these girl child? You need to get rid of them. So that got into his head. So I can see, and that kind of story keeps on coming again and again. So Chapak is again a marginalized stories of the marginalized in a mainstream format. So there are two things, and which your teacher just just previously, the Padman discussion was all about that there are some topics, while there might be lots of stories out there, but the mainstream cinema is where majority of the audience are engaging. And that's what you remember when a big film star does. So when Akshay Kumar does a Padman, so everybody gets to know about the issue of menstruation and period and all those things, and they talk more in an open way. So probably the endorsement by commercial films and big star cast helps you understand this issue much better. Though again, I'll say that there were already stories made. Similarly with Chapak, what happens that a mainstream filmmaker here, I'm forgetting the name, Gulzar's daughter, Meghna making that film, and Deepika Padukone coming in and essaying the role of the victim, of an acid attack victim, gives it credibility, and for people to understand the issue more. So it gives the stories much more visibility than a documentary, or then a kind of a small budget film with no known actors. So that's what a big Bollywood film would end up helping, these kind of marginalized stories, or stories of the people marginalized. Like same thing with Article 15. Article 15 itself, it became a big hit because it picked up the story of the two marginalized girls who were raped in Badau, and then the caste discrimination in it. And because what's the name of the hero? I'm forgetting. So thinking what so many things. So when Khurana, he comes in as the main hero, people are there going to watch what this guy is doing. And so it helps in increasing the, what do you call, the footfall and the audience interest in any film. Though again, it was all about telling the story through upper caste gaze and not actually the marginalized gaze. Those were the issues with the film as well. Last
Sir,
question.
I had a question. This is Saima Parvez. Sir, I'm sorry for not switching the camera on because of certain reasons. But
no.
my question is that we have always been talking about this marginalized group. And somehow we are stereotyping this marginalized group is equivalent to women or only women. But there are problems of men as well, which need to come on the forefront. There should be movies which are relevant for men as well. So this marginalized group is not particularly pertaining only to women. We are talking about rape cases, we are talking about Chapak, we are talking about Padman. But then why is this unbalanced flow of information there in the industry? It should be balanced. This is what I feel like. Marginalized is not equivalent to women, right?
Okay, Saima, did you hear my presentation?
I did. I was there
Yes.
throughout.
Did I talk about women?
No, not at all. But all the
So
questions that are
you just
coming
said,
in.
yeah.
Yeah,
So the
yeah.
question,
This is what
so you
these
ask
are
your
my
question. Don't worry about others' question. They ask their question. You ask your question. I'm interested in your question.
yeah, this is what I feel, that in the Indian cinema or in the mainstream cinema, there should be more documentaries which are more pertinent in speaking out the problems of marginalized group as a whole, not pertaining to a particular gender. They should
Yeah.
be gender free.
Well, gender will always be there. That's an issue because India is a patriarchal society and women are being targeted. So that's why women are put in the marginalized thing. But within the marginalized group, as I said, and I started with, and that's what my area of work is. My area of work is on the representation of caste and caste marginalization. That's what I work. And I look at both the marginalization of people within the caste groups, but also within the caste also. So when we talk about Dalits, then, but when you start looking at the representation of women within the Dalit community, then there is double repression. Okay, then there is a double-edged sword of oppression because you're working through a patriarchal society. So the kind of problems that women face, you can never compare with what men go through. Okay, but then when it comes through marginalized, as I said, there can be marginalization in terms of culture. Right now, Muslims are also facing a specific forms of marginalization because of a specific, situation, a kind of a political undercurrent in the country. And rightly, there's lots of documentaries being made on that particular issue as well. So there are issues with that. Then there are issues of different forms of things. And I said of tribal communities, people whose lands are being taken away, people who are facing deforestation, people who are, where new dams are being built, but they are not getting enough compensation. Documentaries are being made about all these people every time. So, but then the problem, Saima, most of the times what we see is that we don't see enough documentaries in the kind of mainstream platforms where you can actually access it. Now things are
Absolutely.
changing. Now things are changing. Now, like I'll tell you, like even if you look at Jamia Millia, MCRC, in MCRC, every year, students end up making, 100 odds documentaries on different themes and different things, but they are not available for people to watch. Like that, I know so many of documentary filmmakers who are putting their documentaries every year to various international film festivals. They get international accolades, they get to be known in the international circle, but they don't get to be watched by the audience. And that's our problem as documentary filmmakers and people who want these kind of topics to be talked, and are making films on a regular basis, but it is not there. Hopefully, OTT platforms will change the thing. And I would recommend one not OTT platform, but a website called Shots of the Week. Okay, watch that particular site. It has some interesting documentaries, also lots of short documentaries from India is there. Okay, so if you want, you can find lots of interesting themes on marginalization, on otherization, on LGBTIQ communities in that particular platform. And this is just one platform out of hundreds, but that is one platform that I really like to engage. I find lots of interesting documentaries for my students to engage with. In fact, the other day I showed one documentary about this filmmaker whose family was in Syria, and she captured the story of a Syrian family fleeing from Syria, going to Europe, and finally taking, refuge in Canada. And it was a very interesting, just 11-minute short film about, about refugee status and what it does. And finally looking at the two girls of the family who are 5 and 8, and how living in Norway changes their mindset, that they start hating their own country later on, that we don't want to be Syrians anymore, because everybody in school, they tease them to be refugee and immigrant. So there are lots of interesting stories you just need to find, and that's what it is our responsibility, for us at film school, for us teachers, to show as many films that we can do and get you to engage. And probably CIFFI, knowing so many films were coming from all over the world, I think it would be very interesting to see what actually you watched in this film festival. And do you have your own 10 favorite films which you can write about tomorrow? Then that will be a kind of a service that you can do to us and to your fellow, people around here, so that we can bring the discussion wide open. And when people are asking me questions, then it goes beyond Deepika Padukone and Akshay Kumar, because even I don't like answering anything to do with these mainstream Bollywood stars, because I don't think they are doing much. These are lip services. But anyway, those lip services are making a difference. That's also one thing which you see, that actually the mainstream people are being seen more.
So there is Vishnu Das here.
Thank you.
So there is Vishnu.
Yep.
Vishnu, you have become a co-host. You can speak. He want to ask some question.
Good morning, sir. Sorry, good evening, sir. I am Vishnu. I want to ask you a question about that. So, what's the reason behind that you more like documentaries comparatively to the others? Is there any particular reasons, or you like only documentaries, sir?
No, I watch every day. I watch one entertaining film at home. I watch a Hollywood film or a Bollywood film every day. Kuch na kuch dikhna hi hai, so I have to watch. Documentaries I rarely watch. Maybe I watch one or two times, but because it's my work, I teach documentaries, so I show lots of documentaries to my students, and that's how I end up watching lots of documentaries. But I like making documentaries more than watching documentaries. I like making documentaries because that is stories that I want to tell. Okay, so that's my short answer for you. If you
but sir, while making documentaries, do you key points, any particular points regarding what should be the message should convey to your audience?
Yeah, so message is always like, I'll just give you 3-4 different documentaries which I made. So I made this documentary on Chow dance. So my 3 different parts, each part has a different story. The first part was all about what Chow culture is all about, because again, it comes from a different part of India, and lots of people look at it as a marginalized culture. So for me, it was important for people to understand what the culture was there. Second part were focused on the relationship between the dancer and the drummer. Both of these guys were passionate, and I traveled with both of them. And in fact, the dancer, the Chow dancer, he was my Chow teacher. Okay, so because I trained in Chow, that's how I wanted to tell stories of Chow. Okay, and my teacher. So I told the story of my teacher and his friendship with the drummer. And then, I also saw their poverty, because they came from a very small village in West Bengal. They were agricultural laborers. Okay, so they would do the agricultural labor, like they would do all the cutting of the agricultural things. They didn't own land. So they were not landowners. So their stories were different. Not everybody gets to see their story, and not my documentary is very popular. But I wanted to make that story. I wanted to screen it wherever I could. So I screened it in Germany. I screened it in France. I have screened it in more than 10, 15 countries. At least I get to screen it. I get to talk about it, and then something which is close to my heart. And that's what I made stories. And I'm still making the 4th part of the story, looking at the caste structure now. Again, so lots of times, and majority of the times, you will see documentary filmmakers are driven by the passion for the topic, or passion for the things that they believe in. Okay, so that's why you'll find documentary filmmakers also take on the role of activists. Okay, they are activists in there. So I'm a cultural activist. I do lots of work in the area of culture, especially the dying culture and dying art form. So, and lots of documentary filmmakers are, environmental activists who want to protect the environment and talk about that. And that's why they tell those stories. So documentary has to come through your heart. Then there are documentaries where you're commissioned for. Okay. So for example, in Australia, there is a big Australian channel called SBS who hired me to make stories on Australian Indians and what makes them what are their cultural issues in Australia and what makes them Australian Indians. And it wasn't something close to me, but I understood because I'm also an Australian Indian, so I could tell the stories effectively. But most importantly for me, that I was getting paid to make those documentaries. Those were short documentaries, but at the end of the day, I was being paid to do that. So it depends on what kind of circumstances and situations. There are commissioned documentaries that you get paid for, and then there are documentaries that you make to get some money out of it, and then there are documentaries where you just close your eyes and put your money and then you shut yourself, that I made it, that's it.
Thank you so much, sir, for this enlightening session. Now, I may request Professor Dr. Susmita Bala, Head DME Media School, to express her views and give the closing remarks for this wonderful session. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Naisha. Thanks, Dr. Vikrant Kishore, for touching upon such vital aspects of making film, for raising issues of marginalized section, the downtrodden, women and children. Students would have certainly learned as to how to take up issues for making their documentaries. Such kind of brainstorming sessions add value to CIFFI. Thanks, Vikrant, for supporting this film festival and helping in its growth. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, for formal vote of thanks, I would like to call upon Dr. Yamini Khullar, ma'am. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Naisha. I thank Dr. Vikrant Kishore for such an informative and seriously interactive session and touching such in topics. These are the, I think, sir, these topics uh, are not our cinema is not aware about these kind of topics. I think they want entertainment only, and I think that they should touch these sensitive areas as well. So I thank you for this lively session. Thank you so much, sir. I would like to extend my immense gratitude to management of DME. Without the support of Mr. Aman Sahani, Vice Chairman, Justice Bhavar Singh, Director General, and Dr. Ravi Kant Swami, Director, we would not have been able to come this far. I thank them for giving us this wonderful opportunity and platform and the resources to execute the same. I am equally thankful to Dr. Amrit Saxena, Dean DME Media School, Festival Director CIFFI, Dr. Vikrant Kishore, Festival Director, and Dr. Susmita Bala, Head DME Media School, and Festival Chief Associate Director for their constant guidance, support, and encouragement in every step. I thank our partners for collaborating with us in our efforts. My sincere gratitude also goes to the student body of DME Media School, SPARK, that is students with positive attitude and resonating communication. I heartily thank our jury members, Mr. Nimesh Kapoor, Dr. Gauri Chakravarti, Mr. Pankaj Rakesh, Mr. Praveen Nagda, Ms. Sakshi Vindal, Mr. Ram Kishore Parcha, Mr. Satish Kapoor, and Mr. Rohit Lodwal for patiently and fairly watching all the movies and for giving their precious time and feedback. A special note a special note of thanks to Dr. Manmeet Kaur, Dr. Manasvi Maheshwari, Mr. Vishal Sahai, Mr. Madhav Sharma, Mr. Yogesh Sharma, Ms. Saima Parvez, Mr. Pramod Kumar Pandey, Mr. Ashish Chatterjee, Dr. Sumedha Usmana, Mrs. Sukriti Arora, Ms. Karima Jain, Ms. Ritika Vora, and Dr. Iram Rizvi, Ms. Deepa Rudsi, and Ms. Shifali Chibbar, along with Ms. Divya Rastogi, Mr. Mayank Shukla, Mr. Abhijit Saxena, and Ms. Priya Yadav for their constant support. I would also like to thank the student team of CIFFI who have worked tirelessly to make this happen. I must thank all our participants who submitted their engaging films, and thank you to the audience also who has given their time to join the session, and especially for this interactive session. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.